my mom shared this eerie story from her childhood. She grew up in a small village, living with her parents and younger sister. The two of them were close, almost like twins, often sharing a bed and falling asleep in each other's arms. One night, my mom's sister woke up and went to the bathroom. My mom stirred but kept her eyes shut, still half asleep. Moments later, she felt someone quietly slip into bed beside her. Assuming it was her sister returning, she wrapped her arms around the figure, thinking it was odd how quickly her sister had come back, but too drowsy to give it much thought. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence. My mom bolted upright, heart pounding, as the bed shook violently, as if something heavy had leapt off. She turned toward the doorway to see her sister standing there, frozen in terror, tears streaming down her face. Her sister recounted what she had seen. As she returned from the bathroom, she saw my mom lying on the bed, embracing a strange, shadowy figure. Overcome with fear, she screamed, and in an instant, the creature sprang off the bed and vanished into the darkness. It all began when my great-grandmother acquired a one-room apartment. She didn't live there, but instead gave it to my father. Our family, my mom, dad, older sister, and I, moved in, excited about having our own place. I slept in a bed opposite the pantry, and everything seemed fine at first. But soon, I started waking up at night, crying and pointing at the pantry, throwing intense tantrums that were hard to calm. By morning, I remembered nothing. I was only 4, and this continued until I was 6, happening once or twice every few months. My mom, desperate for a solution, took me to several psychics, but their dubious sessions did little to help. When I turned 7, my father got a collie puppy. At first, everything was normal, but as the dog grew, it started behaving strangely, especially near the pantry. It would growl and bare its teeth, fixated on that spot. Alarmed, my parents had the apartment blessed, which seemed to calm both me and the dog, at least for a while. Years passed, and we moved to a 3-room apartment, leaving the 1-room place vacant. At 19, I lived with my girlfriend at my parents' home, but longing for independence, we moved into the old apartment. By then, the eerie incidents were a distant memory. We renovated and settled in, but peace was short-lived. My girlfriend's mood shifted inexplicably, turning aggressive. Eventually, we broke up. At 22, I met my future wife, and we moved into that same apartment. Life seemed normal until we got a Staffordshire Terrier. The dog, much like the collie, would sometimes jump up in the night, growling and baring its teeth at the pantry. When I mentioned this to my parents, they recalled my childhood behavior and the collie's reactions. My future wife admitted she felt uneasy when alone in the apartment, sensing an unseen presence. She often heard footsteps at night, moving from the pantry to the kitchen. On several occasions, the pantry door, usually locked, would swing open by itself. Once, I saw it slam open violently, leaving a deep dent in the wall from the handle. Despite thorough checks, we found nothing in the pantry. At 27, now married, we bought a new 3-room apartment and sold the 1-room place. Yet, sometimes it feels like whatever haunted that old apartment followed us. In our new home, a mirror in the bathroom reflects part of the corridor and pantry. Occasionally, I catch a glimpse of movement near the pantry in the mirror's reflection, but when I turn, there's nothing. Our dog, while alive, still growled at that spot a few more times, though less frequently. Now I'm 30, and one day I flipped through my parents' old photo album. In one picture taken when I was 4, we're all smiling on my childhood bed. In the background, you can see the pantry. The black and white photo, possibly due to its age or a defect, shows pale orbs clustered around the pantry. Another photo shows the collie staring upwards, with the same pale orbs floating above. I was about 12 years old, at an age where childhood fantasies no longer seemed plausible. Not long before this incident, my mom had passed away. Maybe less than a year had passed. Not too long, but not too recent either. I had grown up fast, and by that age, my belief in miracles and rainbows had faded. I saw the world through a much more realistic lens, for a 12-year-old at least. It was a typical evening, now familiar to me. My dad was in his bedroom, watching TV, while I was getting ready for bed. I can't recall if it was during school days or summer, but I remember I went to bed fairly early. My room wasn't large. I could see the entire space from my bed without turning my head. One wall was entirely covered by windows, letting in just enough moonlight to bathe the room in a dim, silver glow. I got into bed, turning to face the wall on my left side, as I always did. I had barely closed my eyes when I felt it, a terrifying sensation that still haunts me. It was as though something enormous was lying on top of me, pressing me down. My mind immediately conjured an image of a massive, cat-like creature, its body heavy and oppressive. Then it growled, low, guttural, terrifying. The sound was unlike any animal noise I'd ever heard, a sound that seemed to vibrate through my bones. I broke into a cold sweat, instinctively pulling the blanket over my head. I could have brushed it off as a product of a tired mind on the brink of sleep, but I distinctly remember that I hadn't yet fallen asleep. I was still awake. I lay there in the dark, heart racing in my chest, drenched in sweat. The sensation of something heavy pressing down on me lasted for what felt like an eternity, 5 or 10 minutes, though it seemed longer. My mind was wide awake, and sleep was nowhere near me. Then, as suddenly as it began, the weight disappeared. It was as if nothing had ever been there at all. Terrified, I stayed under the blanket, not daring to move. Finally, after what felt like an endless moment, I gathered enough courage to sit up. My heart still pounded in my chest as I glanced around the room. It was empty, silent. Nothing and no one was there.